Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I picked this little edger up here this past weekend off of Facebook Marketplace for 40 bucks. And the original owner, or the previous owner, they replaced the spark plug. He said he also cleaned the air filter, but he said what's happening is it will start, but it will not stay running. So we're gonna start off by removing the air filter cover here. And you can do a socket driver, or you can do a flathead. We're just going to use a flathead here. And he said he didn't change the filter, but he blew it out, and it looks like he blew it out there. So the filter looks to be in good shape. So next thing we need to remove is this air filter housing that connects to the carburetor. It has 4 bolts. We're going to use a nut driver. This is an 8mm to remove those 4 bolts. Move those out of the way. We're just going to take these bolts that we removed and put them back into the cover on the ground beside it, so we know exactly where they go. So next thing we need to do is remove the carburetor. However, the carburetor is attached to the gas tank, and this choke and this speed adjusters here is actually attached to the gas tank with the carburetor as well. So there's going to be about 5 screws total, and we're going to be using a Torx T20 to remove the 5 bolts away from the carburetor and the gas tank in order to pull everything apart. The first one I'm working on is back here around the vent tube, crankcase vent tube. So once we get that, we can pull that cover off here. You can pull it, and you see it's very tiny here. And basically this right here is just a little hold down that goes over this crank tube right there. I'm gonna put that aside. There's gonna be one at the very back going through the carburetor. Need to bust that one loose as well. That's a little bit of a longer one there, if you can see that. Up here on the front, we're gonna have, there's gonna be one here directly behind these 2 levers. There's going to be one behind that one, beside the carburetor, and one down here by the throat of the carburetor as well. Here's the other one we're going to get. That's the second one there. Now on the carburetor adjusters here, we have this one linkage rod that's going right here from the choke. It's going to the throat of the carburetor to the choke here. On this one, we can actually turn away and loosen like that. We can pull that off as well. Down here, in order to kill it, once you go to kill this right here, this wire is actually running against the ground, so it's killing the ground to the spark plug. We can push this tab down, pull this wire, and it will release from there, just like that. Then you can take your choke plate here and set it aside. We have one more screw to remove, and it's back over here in the corner. And see, the gas tank just dropped. That's that screw right there as well. Now in order to get the carburetor off, I'm using a T25 Torx bit here to remove the screw off here. Reach your hand in there, pull that screw out. There's one of the bolts that's holding on the carburetor. And the other one is right down here beneath the carburetor. It might be kind of hard for you guys to see. And once you get it loose, you should be able to just take your fingers and unscrew it all the way. And there it is, right there. So now the carburetor is loose from the gas tank. The carburetor is also loose from the engine. You're gonna have a couple of springs here, or actually one spring. We need to take this one spring and disconnect it. Once we have that spring disconnected, we go ahead and disconnect this other rod right here. And there we go. We went ahead and pulled the spring off, and we pulled this rod out here as well. So here's the deal. This is the carburetor, and we're going to be removing this side cover here and replacing the diaphragm in here. But as you can see, this carburetor is extremely dirty on all sides. So the first thing we're going to do is take the carburetor outside, and we're going to shoot carburetor cleaner and just clean this thing up as much as we can before we start opening anything up and actually contaminating the inside of the carburetor more than it already is. So as you can tell, the carburetor is all clean now. The only thing I did is sprayed carburetor cleaner on the outside of it. And half of it looks like it's painted, and the other half looks like it isn't. Now this is actually black paint and not dirt, but we were able to get majority of all the dirt off of the carburetor itself, off of both sides. And now we're gonna go ahead and remove this little cover right here. Now in order to remove this cover here, there's gonna be 4 bolts holding it in place, and we're gonna be using a Torx T15. Now once you have all 4 of those bolts removed, this cover will now come off. You may have to pry on it just a little bit to get it broke loose. So on the inside of here, you're gonna have a spring with a cap, and that's riding right here. Number one, I can tell you this isn't in great condition because the spring isn't moving up and down. There's the spring and the cap there. We're gonna be replacing that as well. So this is the diaphragm that you're gonna be replacing. This helps pump the gas into the carburetor. And as you can see, these 2 flaps here, those flaps need to actually be laying down, and both of those are pointing up. You try to lay it down and they just go back in the up position. Also notice that on this right here diaphragm, let's get it off here. See how the diaphragm is wanting to curl up? That isn't any good. Also, notice the diaphragm is not pliable in the middle where it wants to sit there and pump gas. This is the culprit, and this is why this edger wouldn't stay running. Now before we go and replace the diaphragm, we're gonna take the carburetor cleaner and with a little nozzle and make sure to spray out all the little passages of this cover here and on the carburetor itself. Another thing you can do is we can take out this air fuel mixture screw that's located right here. We can take this right here all the way out and spray down in there as well. Now let's count how many rotations this is out. I usually set mine around 1.5 out, but let's see what this one is. That's half. That's 1. So this is set up pretty much almost 1, I say by 0.85, 0.9 rotations out. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this all the way out here, and we're gonna clean this passageway as well. You do not want to lose the spring or the screw itself. So this is the new spring and cap. We're gonna take this, the cap goes on top. The cap pretty much is there to protect the spring from puncturing through the diaphragm. Go ahead and place that back into the carburetor itself, like so. And you see how this one right here is sitting pretty much flush with the carburetor. The one that we took out, it had actually retracted and it was sitting down low and it wasn't working at all. So this right here is now working where it needs to be. Now when you're putting your diaphragm on the carburetor, you notice you have 4 mounting holes. You also have a centering pin which helps centers up the diaphragm as well. Make sure your diaphragm is on the right way and lay it in place. See how the diaphragm goes in place there? And if you can notice how the little flaps there are in the right direction, they're not popping up. So once we put this right here, top plate back onto the carburetor, everything will fit nicely. And we just need to go ahead and tighten those 4 down. We're just going to hand tighten them, not tighten them down too much, but get them nice and snug. So the gas tank here is real dirty. The gas doesn't smell too bad. However, I think I'm gonna go ahead and dump the gas out. Also, we're gonna clean up the gas tank here. And I do believe I have some more of these gas tank carburetor gaskets, and we're gonna try to go ahead and replace that as well. Before we place the carburetor back onto the engine, we just want this right here to be as clean as possible. And there it is. The gas tank has been emptied and it's been cleaned up as well on the top side, and the bottom side is real clean. Inside of the gas tank is real clean as well. So the next owner, whoever buys this, is gonna get a pretty nice little machine here. Next, we're gonna go ahead and replace the gasket that goes between the carburetor and the gas tank itself here. I ordered these gaskets, and I'll put links in the description of everything I'm using here. And I get these gaskets here in a 5-pack. This time of the year is when everyone is starting to clean out their equipment and, you know, getting rid of stuff and getting new stuff. So we always want to keep stuff on hand. That's how the new gasket looks on there. Looks really good. Together, we can actually place the carburetor back on the machine. All right, we have the carburetor and the air filter and everything back together. Went ahead and put some new gas in the gas tank after we dumped the old one out and cleaned the gas tank as well. Went ahead and put it on the choke here. As you can see, it is cold. I have not started it yet. So we want to go ahead and put this over to choke and go over to the fast setting. And let's pull and see exactly what happens. So it's on low setting. Go ahead and stop it. All right, let's try to start it without the choke this time. Start it on fast here. We leave the choke in the same position that we left it when we turned it off. All right, guys, and just like that, the engine is back together and is running perfectly fine now. Next thing I'm gonna do is probably clean this thing up a little bit before I list it for sale. Also, if you're looking for a diaphragm for one of these flathead Briggs and Stratton engines, I'll place a link to everything I use in the description below on this video, so be sure to check that out as well. Until next time, guys, we'll see y'all later.